well, I guess we'll get started maybe before Joe comes.
Oh, you found them.
The new member Phil, when did he join the band?
During the sort of middle of Pyromania.
Yeah, July 1982.
July, yeah.
Right in the middle. We'd done all the backing tracks, but they were like very, very bare. There was no vocals down. It was literally the very first guitar tracks that you'd ever do.
Yeah.
And then joined in and did a few solos for us.
Completely made a hash of the album.
Well, what does his joining the band mean to the band? What were the changes? What pluses and if any minuses?
I think basically it gave everybody a kick up the backside, you know, because I don't know, he was so enthusiastic, wasn't he?
Yeah, everything was getting a little bit lethargic, a little bit too lethargic, really. And people started taking too many things for granted. And when Phil came, it was like just an injection of enthusiasm to actually meet somebody that's so enthusiastic about everything that you do and so forth. And like it was something that we like actually said to ourselves, well, we used to be like that. Well, you know, what's going on? And it, like everybody just literally got on with it straight away. It was great, and it was like a brand new band starting up again.
Well, it's been a year and a half since then, though. What has kept you from returning to that lethargic?
I think one of the reasons was, not being disrespectful to Pete Willis or whatever, but I don't think he really helped the situation. Because you're only as good as your weakest, member. And I don't think that situation really. And now it's like everybody's sort of improving at the same rate, you know. So it's kind of stayed the same way as when he first joined.
In what ways do you think you've improved since hitting it big and since making that album?
Just musically, and I mean in every way.
We've definitely improved live because I think it's got to the stage where we've had to. We ended up doing God knows how many shows in America.
Like 100
it got to the stage where we did get so tired. I mean, anybody would, I think, just through actually playing the shows. We definitely improved as a live act. And with it being our first headline tour, because every time that we toured America before it was like 40, we've actually got into this situation where we know how to treat an audience a lot better now. You know, like we realise that they're paying the ticket to see us and not the band that's going to follow us.
No, right. There's no excuses anymore, if you like. You know, you've got to be consistently good. You know, like every night. You know, rather than sort of putting it down to it was the monitor engineer or this or that. You know what I mean?
Everybody's grown up a lot more since then.
When did you start headlining? Because the last time I talked to Billy Squire, which was back in I think May or April or so when he came here.
Yeah, April.
April, I think, when he came here. He said, he was getting ready to hook up with you guys and do a tour, in which you would be the supporting act.
Yeah.
When did you start headlining, though?
I'm just trying to think.
Right at the end.
We started February, didn't we? February with Squire.
We got we started the 15th of March with Squire.
We were with him for like.
It was just a month. It was round about the end of April that we actually started headlining.
Yeah, we had
that went right through. The first date we did in Odessa.
No, yeah, that's right. Texas. Odessa, Texas. That was the first gig.
It was something about April 27, 28. And that way it went right through till September.
Well, you know, from them it's sort of carried on like up to now. You know, we haven't sort of supported since.
Oh, is that right?
Well, only doing like in a festival situation where it's like, you know, it's nobody's really above anybody else or whatever, you know.
Well, you ended up, I think, outselling Billy Squire for like last year. But when you were on stage, when you were doing the supporting act and he was the headlining act, was there that much of a difference among the fans? Could you tell that a lot of them, or most of them, come to see you guys?
Yeah. It kind of got a bit embarrassing at times.
It was a bit embarrassing because, like, him and his band were the nicest people. With me, you know, and it was like the thing that Billy did was that he toured constantly before we ever hooked up onto the tour. I mean, he was touring with Saga, he was touring with everybody, and of course he'd done it with Queen and Pat Benatar before that.
Yeah.
And I think he just got to a stage where that many people had seen him. So recently, wherever he went, somebody could actually say, "Well, I saw him, 2 months ago."
Yeah, right.
And
I think he kind of overplayed a little bit.
Well, yeah,
didn't he?
in a way it was good, but I think, in all respect, we were playing pretty big venues, and we really think that we were probably selling at least half the tickets. Which was fair enough, I mean, it was the first time that we'd been back to America for nearly 2 years, and we just had a new album out, and we didn't mind at all, and he didn't mind. I mean, it was like he said it gives him a kick up the backside to actually go on stage after us, and see what he can do.
Because he was in the same situation with Queen, you see.
Yeah, he was giving Queen a good.
Queen was sort of just tailing off in America,
Yeah.
and he was like giving them a good run for their money. So
It was
he
like
could
the
appreciate the
situation.
situation. He wasn't really bitter at all, which was good.
Think
He
that's pretty
was
good.
earning a lot of money off that too. We'd sell the tickets.
What other bands were you opening for, and did you learn anything from the bands? Now you're in a position
in
to-
1980, I think the first band we toured in America.
We did two. First of all, we did 2 weeks with Pat Travis Band. That was a good experience for us. And then we started touring with Judas Priest.
No, Nugent after.
No, it was Priest before.
Priest and then Nugent, wasn't it?
It was Priest, Nugent, Priest.
That's right. That's right.
And the Priests were great. It was like Kenny and Glenn, the 2 guitar players, really sort of went out of their way to look after the band. It was like a little bit they were like fatherly figures to us. It was like they'd done it many times before, and it was our first time to America, first tour, and they were really sort of saying, well, you should do this, you should do that, and look at so and so and whatever. And they were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that was really
Nothing
good.
was too much trouble for them. It was great. And, there was no problems whatsoever. The people like that, were really great.
Have all the experiences been that good when you've opened for people, or have there been bad ones as well?
Most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
I mean, you hear about the headliner being a bit nasty to the support act time and time again, but we've never really experienced it. And if ever there are any sort of grievances, it's always between the managers. It always goes like above the bands, and the bands are still.
It's just
working
like all
great.
the politics and everything, rather than the two bands,
But the bands that we've actually supported they really have gone out of their way to try and make us feel as welcome as possible, which is great.
When you worked with Billy Squire, did he come to you, or his agency came to your agency asking you guys to support him?
I'm really not
I
sure.
know, actually.
It happened. It was such a long time before the actual tour was set up. It was like we were still actually doing the album, which if we'd have known how the album was going to start selling, straight away, we might not have even done the tour. We might have decided, well, we can afford to actually go out and headline our own show straight away.
No, I think that would have probably been
Oh yeah,
too
it would have
soon.
been. But if we'd have known, we might have actually changed our mind. I'm saying that the actual whenever the contracts were drawn up or whatever happened, it must have been 4 or 5 months before we actually did the tour.
So joint tours are not really the work of the band members as much as just people.
Not really, no. Well, in a support situation, it's simply a case of when are you going to be available for touring, and which is the best band or act that you could possibly tour with. I mean, if it hadn't been Billy Squire, I don't think there'd been anybody else in actual fact, because at that particular stage, we were a band that had we'd just gone gold with our second album, Iron Dry, and we were at the stage where a lot of bands didn't really want us supporting them because they were a little bit wary, a little bit frightened. We were a little bit too good to be a support act, but we weren't quite good enough to be an headline act. It was like a catch-22 situation. And I don't think there was that many other bands around at the time.
No, there wasn't.
And of course, Squire was one of the few that actually took the attitude of, well, I mean, if they're almost good enough for an headline act, then they're going to do me a lot of good. The show's going to be a lot better. And so he said, yeah, we'll have them.
Since becoming a headlining act, how the audience has been? Have been filling places up pretty regularly?
Yeah,
in America, it was getting silly.
He started off as good, and then he just went to extremely good.
His word sort of got round, from the shows and this and that.
The last show we did in San Diego was an open air thing. There was a little bit of a party type thing. There was who was on? There was Motley Crue, Uriah Heep, Eddie Money, and then us, and there was 55,000 people there. You know.
That was unbelievable.
What is putting your popularity so far ahead of the glut of other bands and working the same genre as you? It's one thing that was wondered about.
It's a lot of contributing factors, isn't it? Like, just, I think exposure, the way we've been exposed on MTV and this and that and radio. You can't put your finger on.
I don't think you can
one particular
actually say that there's one thing that is responsible. I think it's like loads of very small things all put together at the right time. You know.
That's it. It was all a matter of being in the right time, you know, or the right place at the right time. And such like.
I think there's a certain element of luck in it as well. You know, I mean, with anybody, just getting the breaks.
How has MTV helped you?
Well, initially, it basically took. Our second album, Iron's Eye, we when that came out, we did a tour supporting Blackfoot and Ozzy Osbourne at different stages, and we finished the tour. We went back to England, and the album had more or less stopped on 300,000 copies, which we were satisfied. And then MTV started up, and radios all around the country were playing Bringing on the Heartbreak. But like a lot of radio stations do, they don't actually tell you who the band is. They'll just play a batch of records, and people were hearing this song, but they didn't really know which band it was. And then MTV put Bringing on the Heartbreak on, and all of a sudden the album started selling again. And within 6 to 7 months, it had actually started selling. And like I said, it went gold, so it sold over 200,000 just through the band not being there. It was just totally through MTV. And then, of course, when Pyromania first came out and we released Photograph, it really kicked it in. I mean, it just went silly. And the response on MTV has been unbelievable. You know, it's like they actually told us we get twice as many letters than any other band. You know, I mean, it was just phenomenal. We win all the video fine.
Just get over to such a wide audience, you know, with MTV.
What are the people getting off on visually?
I think they're just getting up.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because there's that many things. You know, I mean, you could have a good video. You could have a bad video that is actually still interesting to look, as long as the members look pretty fresh and everything else is working. I don't know whether it's just the song or whether it's the techniques or whether it's a good technical video. I really don't know. The one thing that worries me at the moment is that there seems to be, like, any band that releases a single has to do a video. So everybody's doing videos. And it seems to me that all the videos are starting to look similar. Like you can watch an hour's worth of videos on MTV or whatever, and you tend to become a little bit brainwashed, and you stop not listening to the songs anymore. And I think that's a little bit of a shame, because there was a period where the video was relatively new, but it wasn't exactly old enough to look a little bit boring. It was like everything that was done was really fresh. And now things seem to have just gone a little bit stale. The bands that actually take your interest on video are the people that take your interest anyway. They're just interesting characters, like Van Halen. Whether you like them or you don't like them, you can look at them and you start looking at them. You really can't take your eyes off the screen, because there's a little bit of comedy there. But the showmanship is so supreme. I think that's the main thing.
So now that you know video is playing this big a part in your popularity, although the record is probably handle more than half of that, in what way do you plan on making videos? Is it your own creative thing?
Well, we kind of work along with two-way thing. We work along with this guy called David Mallet, and we kind of bounce ideas off each other. you know, we might do, like for instance, the last video I did, it was like partly live, partly sort of conceptual sort of thing. But I mean, for the next one, because of what Sav was just saying, you know, about videos tending to sort of be in the same vein, the same sort of, you know, getting a bit stale. I think we'll probably go for something a bit different next time. You know, and we'll, as I say, we'll work along with Dave, and you know, see what comes up.
Spending that much time in America, do you find yourself watching a lot of MTV and videos? And
it's a bit addictive, actually, once you sit down
We don't
and do
actually
watch
see it often, but when we do, like sometimes we think we'll check into a hotel that actually has it on the TV, and you can say, well, you might have 5 minutes spare, and you just switch it on, and you say, I'll see you in the bar in 5 minutes. You just can't tell you.
No, you end up 2 hours later, you know, it's...
Is that right?
Well, it's still there watching it.
What do you get off on when you watch it?
It's just
I think half the time it's wondering who's on next.
Yeah.
You know, it's like sometimes like you can see.
Tell the
really
truth,
bad
Joe.
video.
Tell the truth.
Oh,
It's
right,
waiting for us. It's waiting to
Well,
see yourself on the TV.
There comes that.
And then when we come on, we can enjoy the bar.
What artists have you really enjoyed on MTV? Like the videos you see it. Fuck, if I could make a video like that. A video like this.
Yeah.
Aside from Michael Jackson, of course.
No, I think it's more looking at the videos and saying, God, how could they make a video as bad as that?
Is that right?
No,
Most
most of them are pretty.
There's not many videos that we actually sit back and think, you know, yeah, that's a great idea for us to use, or that's a really good video. I think I remember liking one of the Fix videos. One thing leads to another. No, it was Saved by Zero.
Saved by Zero.
That was quite a good video. But there again, you know, it all boils down to music, because we happen to like the Fix a lot. We think that, you know, that Reach the Beach album's a great album.
You're bound to be biased towards the video.
You can almost like the video, even if the video's pretty bad. Really. You know. So I think in the long run, it's always the music that counts. Like, you know, if you've got a great song and a great video, you're winning. I still think if you've got a pretty average song with a great video, you're still going to be struggling.
Because when all's said and done, you do hear the songs on the radio first. I think that's probably one of the reasons why you sit down and, you know, sort of just glued to the TV, because you've only ever heard the songs and you haven't really seen the videos. You know?
That's the essence of MTV. I think is actually they play the songs like your radio does, but it gives people a chance to actually see the people that are singing it, and it gives them a better identity
like
of the actual band.
A different angle on the band, if you like.
Because there are people that'll hear a song on a radio and have an opinion about it, and they'll actually see the band and have a totally different opinion, simply because they can't identify with the lead singer's trousers or the way that he wears his shirt. I mean, people are that prejudiced now. So
Brilliant. Especially my trousers.
Well, now that you're spending so much time touring the States, do you feel that your popularity depends on being there? Or do you think you can take like a year off from touring? And
we've always, strange enough, we've always ended up taking, or seemingly taking a year off in America. And I think there's times when it actually does you good. It was getting to the stage when we were in America that the actual media was just total overkill. Every week in, I don't know, circus or hit parade, we were on the front cover. I mean, we always thought that was reserved for David Lee Roth. I mean, I think it wasn't until we actually...
I must say, circus became like Def Leppard Weekly.
You know, it was a little bit embarrassing. It was like they would run out of things to actually write about us, and they ended up inventing their own stories in the end.
The thing is, with a lot of American bands and whatever, well, a lot of bands in general, I think they just overexpose themselves. If they realise that they're becoming very big in America, or, you know, for instance, just the way America is, they'll overexpose you anyway. But as I say, if you
it's sometimes a good thing to be actually out the limelight for a while. Because that's what happened with us before our High and Dry album, the second album. We did the first album, and then we were due to go in whenever later with Mutt Lang, and he was doing the Foreigner 4 album, And he said, "Well, yeah, I'm going to be finished with Foreigner in 3 weeks, and then we'll start." 3 weeks came and gone, and he was still. He probably.
Yeah, it was like saying, "Well, I'll be with you in a month."
He recorded one verse with Lou Graham or whatever in 3 weeks, and he said, "I'll be another 3 weeks, sorry." And this literally went on, and we were like waiting for 7 months in the end, and we were like in two minds whether to say, "Well, look, let's get another producer," because we've started something in America, and we need to continue it, immediately, where people are going to forget about us. And we went through that, and we've actually found out that it sometimes works in your favour, whereas people are thinking, well, what's happened to Def Leppard? And there's a little bit of rumours going around, and all of a sudden it's like mystique about the band creates,
that's good.
and people think, have they split up or whatever, and then you release the album, and all of a sudden there's this interest created through the long gap, and the same thing happened with Pyromania. We were scheduled to finish the album and have it released and be back touring America in round about August 1982 until December, which is quite a long time. And then, of course, we have obligations to tour Europe and then England and what have you. So by the time we get to America, it was March, and that's, how many months is that? 6-7 months late. And all this time, people are wondering, what the hell's going on, what have you. And then, of course, there was the rumour that Pete Willis had left the band, and that created a little bit more. And so eventually, all of a sudden, you've got nothing, and then the album comes out, and everybody's sort of interested. Whereas if you're constantly getting the press and the media and what have you, people tend to get a little bit bored of you.
It just made everybody so curious about what was going on with this band. What's the deal with these guys?
Had there been that much pre-publicized stuff in the media, like what was happening with you?
No, there wasn't. That was the thing. You see,
there wasn't much at all.
It was just little things that maybe slipped out, or things that somebody somewhere in America had made up, if you like, because we had all kinds of stories.
Me and Joe being killed twice.
Yeah, I've got leukemia as well.
Looking quite well, actually.
I've got leukemia. I died in an airplane crash. I've been decapitated. No, it was worded better than that. Joe Elliott had a car crash and his head came off. And
brilliant.
I've got cancer.
Cancer? You still have cancer?
Yeah, I've got
the whole
cancer.
school in Detroit.
Yeah.
The whole school?
The whole school wrote me letters saying you're dead. I'm really sorry. And I hope the group continues with a new singer.
I'm probably gay somewhere in California. You know what I mean?
Everybody's gay in California. Had you known it was going to be that big, though, when you released the album in the States? Has there been any clue to it?
We knew that the album was good, and we hoped that people would sort of like it as much as what we liked it.
You can always try and hope and pray that it sells many records, and we believed it was a good album. But that's as far as it can go. I mean, great albums sometimes don't sell many copies. That's the tragic thing.
I don't think
There's
you can ever say
there's
One
no
sells
set rule.
one for a start.
Yeah, the fucking first Mott album.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, really. I mean, there's all kinds of albums like that.
Well, but no band ever expects that any album of theirs to sell as many as ours has done. It's at the moment it's 6.1, and it's still selling at a regular rate.
Flip the old here.
Did it to sell well?
But we didn't expect it to sell as many as it has done. Like I said, I don't think any band actually.
It's not
in
important.
all honesty,
No,
would
no,
expect
it's
it
up
to.
to I found it.
Expect their
I'm
album
going
to
to buy
sell
this.
that
I
many
did buy last time
records.
around. Definitely buy this time. Double
What
wide.
really
faces are always-
surprised me is that we're at the forefront of this sort of new heavy metal hard rock thing in England.
Yeah.
And you were doing really great, but it never really went over in England, did it?
No,
Just didn't.
it was going to. There was a time in 1979, I think, that we started getting a hell of a lot of press before our first album came out, and in press ways, we were one of the biggest bands in England. This is before we even had an album out.
Yeah.
And we were doing quite a lot of tours. We supported AC/DC in England, and we supported Sammy Hagar in England, and we were getting great reviews, etc., etc. Then the first album came out, and it wasn't exactly what people expected. They expected a rawer type of sound, a more English type production.
So the press, they started slagging it off.
They started making accusations that we'd actually doctored the album and made it presentable to American music more than English. And we, in all honesty, when we wrote the songs and when we recorded the songs, we weren't even aware of America.
We didn't even know America existed.
Maybe we should have been. You know, I mean, we wrote a song called Hello America, which, in all honesty, if we look back now, we probably wish we'd never done.
Well, especially the lyrical side of it.
Well, yeah, that's what we're talking about, Joe.
No, you know, I mean, just those, you know, those words. Hello
Because
America.
it leads people to believe things that aren't there, and Joe just, I mean, it is a good idea. I mean, America's this place somewhere over there with thousands of miles that you never see, but only on Kojak or whatever. And it's obviously an exciting thing to write about. And it was, I mean, when you wrote the song, nobody had any objections, did they?
It won best songs you played.
It was.
It went down best live. Everybody used to cheer when we did it.
What about
But
America?
all of a sudden the press said, "Hello America," you know, sell out, sell out. You know, I wrote that song. I had to pick the names off a map because I didn't even know enough.
Song.
I mean, I knew LA, New York,
Town.
and Detroit, but it didn't rhyme with what I needed. I had to pick
In fact,
them
there was
off.
one place that you put down. What was it?
San Pedro Bay.
Pedro Bay.
Well, no,
Still haven't seen it.
Half the management team didn't even, he's American, didn't even think San Pedro Bay existed. Then we got a map out and looked for it and found it.
Oh, we did find it, didn't
That's
we?
where they got it from.
Same map.
That's how much about America we knew. It a bloody map.
Well, I would imagine that your success there has increased your interest somewhat in America.
Well,
I mean,
Of course, yeah, you got to, haven't you, when you sell that many records.
well, now that you're this big there, still not that big in Britain, do you plan on spending more of your free time in America, or are you still going to make Britain your home?
I won't spend any free time in America except on the golf course.
On a golf course?
I don't find it a very creative place, America. I think
No,
it's
not
very
at all.
stifling. It's great to go and reproduce what you've already written, but you actually start writing songs there and then you start sounding like
San
Foghat,
Diego.
San Diego.
Do you see that much of a difference?
Yeah, well,
Because there's a lot of American acts now that are trying to sound a little bit English with an American production. They're trying to get a sort of raw edge, and they really can't do it living, 7 days a week in San Francisco
You
and
have to
LA.
bring that.
You can't do
There's that-
it. It's just a totally different attitude.
it's
I don't
difficult
know.
to explain it.
Yeah.
You have to be English to understand what we're saying, I think.
It's like, you look at the Stones, classic English band, technically they're terrible, but they sell records, there's something about them.
There's just some magic about them that makes them
America,
click,
I don't really think America will never ever produce a Rolling Stones. But that's not knocking Americans, it's just a different way of doing it. I don't think, the biggest bands in the world always seem to be English.
Yeah, the only time ever that there's been a sloppy band that should have been big, they never got the chance to, and that was the New York Dolls. They were as bad as the Rolling Stones, but America couldn't accept the fact that they produced a band that sounded like an English band.
And they've never done it.
They wanted another Todd Rundgren, or they wanted a Boston in '73, and they got him in '76 or whatever. And so they just weren't ever accepted.
I think Aerosmith got close sometimes.
Yeah, I thought so.
They were a
I
bit
thought so.
more of an
Aerosmith
English
was
type
Yeah.
of sloppiness that you'd never. I mean a sloppiness in a
dirty,
good way,
yeah,
sort of.
yeah.
They kind of got to the top and went over the top.
The thing is, a lot of people do draw this distinction between the American hard rock bands and the British hard rock bands, and they tend to put Def Leppard often in the American category because of the up sound, the sort of pop-like sound that's very common to the American bands.
Yeah.
You don't find that similarity.
I don't think you can sort of generalise like that.
I think it's true to a certain extent that you should be put in that category, because we do spend a lot of time whenever we go in the studio. We literally cut out all the potential sloppiness, as it were. I mean, if you listen to the album, it's technically very, very high standard, and it's like we record everything separately, and it takes a long time. We'd spend a lot of time actually recording our albums. So in that way, and it does actually come out sounding
more American than say English. Like you listen to a U2 production and it's chalk and cheese. But the U2 album is, it's great for the songs that they're doing. But our production is a lot smoother. And I suppose that's true in a way. But the difference is that you get a lot of American bands that try and produce and actually achieve a technically great produced album, but you go on stage and all they do is end up more or less just standing there with a great light show, pretty
exactly
good sound, and you might as well have cardboard cutouts. Now live, we are an English band. There's no two ways about it. There's no way anybody can think that we're slightly Americanised when we play live, because he's, eyes down looking and go for it sort of thing. And there are mistakes live. But we don't mind that, because you've got Joe running around the stage. You got.
I'm just saying, there's everybody running around like
everybody's got areas. There's no leads whatsoever on stage, and it's like you keep your eye on one member for 2 seconds, and you're doing pretty well, because he's 1 minute he's there, the other minute he's there, and there's not many American bands that do that. Really.
How about vocal-wise, Joe? Have you taken a lot of your influence been mostly British then?
I haven't got any vocal influences, really.
You don't think so?
Well, I have. I mean, I've got a lot of people that I respect, but I've never sat down and actually tried to sing like anybody else. I just haven't got that kind of throat for a start. I couldn't. I mean, I can sit down and mimic somebody, but I could never sit down and copy somebody's style. I mean, I really enjoy listening to people like Rogers and Plant, and even Annie Lennox and what have you. I wouldn't say I sound like any of them, and I wouldn't say I've ever tried to.
I think you sound like Annie Lennox.
But again, we all have our problems.
It was never a conscious thing for me. It's just something I realised as I was learning to sing, that, well, I might not be the best singer in the world, but at least I don't sound like anybody else. No, if I could use that to my advantage, which I've managed to do, it would work. Because, I mean, somebody could stick me in the studio and make me try something for days on end to sound like A Whole Lot of Love or Good Loving Gone Bad, and I'd never be able to sound like either of them. I just couldn't do it. I mean, I can sing a vocal line that Plant will sing, exactly the same vocal line, but it won't sound like Robert Plant. No. I mean, I've done the vocal line on Stage Fright, I think, is very Robert Plant, but it doesn't sound like Robert Plant. She used the idea of a Plant vocal line, but I just thought, it's like, Plant would never sound like Chuck Berry, even if he tried to.
Yeah. But when you were up and coming, wasn't there somebody you idolized or somebody you wanted to be like?
Oh yeah, but not as a singer, just as I used to idolise Ian Hunter, somewhat severe. Ian Hunter
more as a musician, though, wasn't it?
But that's just as a person.
Songwriter.
I mean, I just thought he looked amazing.
Was he that big a part?
It's the image type.
Personality was more than,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just, I thought Hunter was amazing. I still do. As when he was in Motley Hoople, I think he was brilliant.
When did it basically start for you guys? When did you start being musicians and start singing and playing? And
I started getting into it the first time I ever saw Mark Bolan.
Oh, really? Huh.
Seriously, I mean, I used to stand on a little stool in the kitchen and the plastic guitar and all the Beatles stuff when I was 5.
I used to have a tennis racket, so there.
And I used to have a few records up to being 10 or so, but all of a sudden I saw T-Rex went to Music City of England and didn't even mention us. I mean, that's how healthy it was. I mean, then again, we still don't do it. We wouldn't mention us this year either.
No.
Because we don't sell that much in England.
Too much of a holiday.
But there was ABC and there was the Human League, and Thompson twins are from Chesterfield. So I mean, that's like 11 miles away. And there's so many bands, and it was like just add the charts up and divide it by the cities or whatever, and somehow Sheffield came to.
Oh, it was always there.
Even above London.
The Human League, they kind of grew up. Well, they kind of started getting really popular in America while we were actually there. I mean, whenever we were in Sheffield, they never really used to do a great deal, did they? It was only until we went away. Because I can remember being away. Hearing about the Sheffield band, you know.
Right.
They've
It
sort
was
of,
after when they brought that single out, which was when we were over there.
Want me, yeah.
Don't you want my baby?
they sort of proved to be a flash in the pan since, though.
I don't know about that.
I like that.
See, I think it's so difficult to say. You get one out, people will say that about us if
Yeah, exactly.
Leopard 4 doesn't sell 6
That's
million.
it. They'll say Pyromania, flash in the pan.
People have done it before.
Let's see a 10-year career and see if they were a flash in the pan first. You know, the Beatles probably. I've said this before. The Beatles' biggest selling album was probably a long time before Sgt. Pepper came out, but that's the one that went down in history. So I mean, you can't tell yet. They've only had one album out since.
Yeah.
Same with ABC. Their last album supposedly flopped in a big way. Don't mean to say that their next one's not going to be 80 times better than Lexington or Love or whatever it's called.
Phil Oakey doesn't strike me as being the type of person that won't be doing something in 5 years' time. I think, you know,
He's too shrewd.
there's a certain amount of people that are pretty sus. You know, Boy George is another one. Whether he's still looking like he does now, I think he'll still have a lot to do with the music business in 10 years' time. Because people like that, they consider what people think. They've got a brain in their head, you know, and they are pretty good, and most importantly, they're pretty talented as well. So, you know, I don't think whether the Human League lasts that long, but I think Phil Oakey in some context will definitely last that long.
Speaking of the British bands, Duran Duran are in town now, and they were in town last time.
Well, we were with them down in Tokyo. Yes.
So, apparently, I hear you guys got together last time you were here, so got together this time or something. When you guys get together, what kind of things do you talk about? Just for
We just drink.
No, I was saying that I went out with Steve, our guitar player, last night, and I was saying it was great to actually meet people like Duran Duran and actually sit down and have a drink and a talk with them, and you don't have to talk about music. You know, you can just have like normal conversations like normal people would. You don't have to start talking about your album or what did you do to record such and such a thing. You know, which was definitely a plus point.
Well, what kind of things do you guys talk about? Globe
Just
Trotters that you are?
What's going on at home, this and
yeah.
that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just things that you sort of rap about, you
You
know.
know, general boilers situation in the club or whatever. You know. Just, you know.
Standard of the vodka.
Yeah.
You know, I remember seeing a picture of you guys on the cover of Sounds magazine. One of you were chugging a bottle of vodka. I don't know if there was water in this. I heard that you don't drink, though.
Where did you hear that from?
You got to show me the magazine. I don't know. What do you do to stay healthy on tours? I mean, you can't go around chugging vodka all the time before perform
Well,
day after day.
I'll let you into a secret on that. I tell you how much we do drink is that they wouldn't let me do that with vodka. We had to empty the vodka bottle, fill it with water, waste all the water to take the photo, and then put the vodka back in and then drink it. This is what we did. I wouldn't pour that much vodka away. There's water for the photo.
Is it right?
All back in.
I think the only time we sit down and have a drink is probably after a show.
And I don't drink like Steve drinks, you know. So apparently, what was it? Brilliant
You
impersonation.
should have fucking been out with us
One
last
step
night.
forward and 3 steps backwards last night. You know.
It was fearless. You missed an event last night.
Did
I'll tell
I?
you. Oh, it was fucking great.
You know that just outside, the pavement sort of slopes. Apparently, he came. I did it the other night. So he came walking out, and he was dead rigid, and he was sliding down the pavement.
He's having his It's like I didn't realise we were slowly just sliding. And he's still oh, it was brilliant.
Well, you've got a brutal road schedule. What do you do to stay in shape?
Playing on stage. I think that keeps on.
That's a fair old workout, actually.
The most difficult part is like the first 2 weeks of any tour, because you're actually you go for it on stage, and like the energies. I still think it's higher than any other band. Actual movement and what have you, and that actually helps keep you in shape. It's just we really ought to probably do a little bit more fitness work before a tour, because it takes us 2 weeks to actually get the fitness there. But once you've actually got it, you know it's not too bad, and as long as you don't actually go overboard with the drinking and stopping up at night. I mean, you know, there's times when I mean, we all like a drink. I mean, I think that's putting it mildly. But there are times when all of us, after a week or so, will actually have a night in and not drink at all. Because it sort of caught up with you. You have a night out and then you go fucking... A night in, rather, and then you go stupid the following night.
I mean, we do me and Sav play a lot of golf on days off.
Is that right?
Yeah. And we had about 10 or 11 charity games of soccer in America on this last tour.
Yeah,
that were
that
actually in
keeps you
between the sound check and the show. Whereas we'd be playing soccer for an hour at 90 degrees. I mean, on a full-size pitch 11 aside, finishing at 7:30 and on stage at 9. And I mean, yes, we did suffer for it. You know, you get up the next morning and you're like this. You go on past your legs. I mean, after your third game, you don't feel it. It's a fact. It's like the beginning of the tour. When you haven't been on the road for 11 months or so, the morning after your first gig, you wake up with an incredibly stiff neck because it's the first time your head's been doing that for a year. It's fine, it is, isn't it? But after 2 months, all of a sudden, all the muscles kind of wake up again, and this, obviously your neck becomes a bit white.
Loosening up and stuff.
Everything becomes back to normal.
What kind of a golf game do you guys shoot?
Pretty bad, actually.
What's an average score?
90, 95.
95?
On a strange course. Yeah.
Oh, that's not
if we got
bad.
used to a course, we could probably hit 85.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Surprising. Somehow I expected you to be more the soccer types than the golf
Yeah,
types.
so did I.
We've been playing soccer. We've been playing golf
Ages.
15 years.
So I was a better golfer when I was 16.
Oh, is this
Me
that common among kids in Britain?
I used to.
Well,
Well,
I mean, like, I never knew Saf till 7 years ago, but we used to do the same things at the same time.
Exactly
I
the
started
same, yeah.
playing golf when I was about 12, so did he, I think. I used to play tennis. I always got to semi-finals at under 14, under 16s when I was 14. Sheffield Arms tennis tour.
There's very few sports
McEnroe,
that we couldn't actually get into.
I got
I think
the
it's the
mouth.
challenge of it.
So it's competitive.
Yeah.
We used to enjoy doing.
And when we actually do it, I mean, we don't mess around. I mean, it's fucking serious stuff. If he misses a putt from that long, I mean, you don't hear about it.
Pulling the putter back out.
Yeah,
It's like
really.
that.
It's like heavy jilter.
I mean, me personally, I mean, I can't see the fun in going in a gym and giving it all this one and work. I'd rather be competitive, trying to get fit, rather than sort of, doing that. I prefer to do that, like playing soccer or or whatever,
Well,
more fun.
We take that deadly serious as well, soccer. But not as serious as Maiden.
Well, on that note, I'm going to have to get out. Everybody's complaining, so thanks a lot for the time. Huh?
Thank you.
僕は